Gentlemen and female gentlemen, we are here with another lore dive. A lot of people ask me to keep doing the D&D lore. They don't get a lot of views, so you have to share them around, obviously. But I'm excited. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. My previous D&D lore dive was in the Copper Dragons, and I have to say I am going to be putting that in B tier. That is B tier lore. I like the idea of jester, funny, goofy dragons. I think that's a B tier creature. Today we are doing mimics. So a lot of people said we got to do the mimic lore. People told me that mimics are sexualized, even though from my understanding mimics were just like treasure boxes that looked like treasure boxes, but they ended up eating your ass. Oh, I get it now. Anyway, lock in. Let's see what we got.
So this one might not be as grand a creature as the Tarrasque or the Krakens or many of the ancient dragons we covered before, but I am so excited to talk about the Mimic just because of how much of what we think about them is just
all I know about mimics are from Dark Souls, and they have traumatized my life because Dark Souls 3 is the first Dark Souls game that I played like completely blind myself, you know, with no conversations with anybody. And I got fucked by a mimic right in the beginning. It's literally right in the beginning. Cover the Tarrasque? All right, maybe we'll do the Tarrasque in the next one.
Not true. There's so much about this mysterious class of creatures that are not known to the general populace, and I am here to change that by quite a bit.
Dude.
Let's talk about the one reason you probably are second-guessing yourself on whether or not to open that chest.
Yeah, no, they scarred me for life. It's like, it's actually traumatic. You see a treasure chest and you're like, ooh, gold, jewels, beyond my wildest dreams. And you're like, oh, wait a sec, hold up, wait a second. This could ruin my entire day. You know what I mean? It's horrible. All right, let's go.
First, as always,
literally a Jew trap, I'm telling you.
Let's look at the monster manual entry for the creature and see what we're actually told for this monster.
And for the record, they're really hard to kill. Also, it's not like it just tricks you, but like they will eat your ass.
First of all, mimics are shape-shifting predators able to take...
And by the way, I was today years old when I realized that Vturbs in Pokemon are mimics. When you think it's like a Pokeball and you click on it and then it just fucking blows up. I am today years old when I realized that Vturbs are mimics.
On the form of inanimate objects to lure creatures to their doom. They will take on the form of chests, doors, and objects such as those which they have learned...
Doors? Objects? I thought they were only wait, so mimics could be anything? No, I'm out. No, sir. Nothing is safe. It could be a house. What? Houses could be mimics? Bro, are you joking?
Attract a steady supply of victims. Once the victim touches their transformed form, they shift and attack in order to eat the victim.
Yeah.
A mimic in its altered form is nearly unrecognizable from the actual item.
Yeah.
Becoming a perfect rendition of what it is trying.
What do you mean nearly unrecognizable? What's the trick?
To mimic when it changes.
So I know that in Dark Souls 3, it took me forever to figure this out, by the way. All right, I'm obviously the GOAT. Dark Souls 3 is one of my favorite video games of all time. I think that it has the greatest ending in all of video game history, the end of Dark Souls 3. So in Dark Souls 3, you realize, and I only realized this like literally probably 3/4 way through the game, if you look at the treasure chest and you don't move, if it's a mimic, you'll see it breathing. You'll see it slightly breathing. And when I noticed that, it literally freaked the shit out of me.
Shape, it excretes this adhesive that helps it seize prey and weapons that touch it. It says here that the adhesive is absorbed when the mimic assumes its normal form and on parts the mimic uses to move itself. Lastly, on the last paragraph, we're told that they live and hunt alone. Although most mimics have only predatory intelligence, a rare few evolve greater cunning and the ability to carry on simple conversations in common or undercommon.
Mimics could talk?
Interesting. Such mimics might allow safe passage through their domains or provide useful information in exchange for food. We also have a slight tidbit here as we are shown that they are immune to acid damage. But there you go. That is the mimic for 5th edition. We're shown a badass picture of your traditional mimic in chest form with eyes and a mouth to boot. Though no look on how the creature might actually look on its normal form. But hey, without skipping a beat, let's just go ahead and talk about what the manual does not tell.
Look, man, you haven't lived unless you've gotten grabbed by a mimic. I really think that it changes you. The first time you get got by a mimic, it changes your life. You can never, ever take things for granted ever again. I really believe that. I think it's a coming-of-age story.
You about mimics. First and foremost, let's talk about the actual mimic creature. That is, no transformations, no color changes, nothing. What is that creature and how does it look like? The mimic, as the monster manual puts it, is amorphous. It doesn't have a specific shape. The best explanation for its look is going to be that of a slime, because it basically looks like a slime. The difference, of course, is that it has skin and organs. The creature's normal basic color is that of a speckled gray, a color that looks very much like granite. When a mimic is attempting to behave and look like a rock, it actually uses this color, which is its natural hue. The skin layer of the mimic is hard and actually feels somewhat like stone. It's rough to the touch. The inside, however, once you go deeper than the outer layer of the skin, it actually becomes soft.
So
it's
a slime on the inside, it's stony on the outside. It's like a geode kind of thing.
Would find all the normal organs of the creature. Its heart, its digestive system, the whole thing. Now, one of the most important organs for the mimic are these muscular organs that serve as both bags and pumps. You will find them scattered across the body of the mimic, and what they do is they hold a brown liquid that works as pigmentation for the creature. When the mimic wants to change color, the Is
that a barrel mimic? Bro, you go up to some barrel and it just eats you, bro.
muscular organs will squeeze the liquid from the inside of its body towards the outer layers of the skin using the blood vessels. What happens is the capillaries...
It is crazy that there's so much lore for this thing. This is just a treasure chest that tricks you. It's crazy that there's like a full biological, physiological breakdown of this creature.
On the outer layer of the skin will fill with this liquid. Then the capillaries will stand out, brownish and wrinkled in a pattern that resembles wood grain. Now this is what the mimic does in order to appear as wood on the outside. And when it wants to revert back into its normal color, it'll do so by using a form of external contortion.
So it chameleons itself to look like a fucking piece of shit and then it eats your ass.
The mimic will appear to wriggle and twist all over as it empties its capillaries of this liquid, returning back to its traditional gray color. So as you can see, the process for the creature to change colors is just not actually magic.
Is that a chair? Mimics can become chairs? It's not even like it's not even hollow. It's not even like a barrel or a treasure chest. It's just... Bro grabs a dildo all of a sudden. It was a mimic. Bro, what are we doing? They can be anything.
At all. There's no transmutation magic happening here. But what this also means is that
Someone in my chat just said toilets. You are trying to ruin my life.
range of things that the mimic can actually convert to is actually quite limited. The mimic, for the most part, can only really do either gray stone using its natural color or wood grain using its pigmentation process. Anything else that it might have to rely on being clever with its body or with materials that it might find around.
So if it's not stone and it's not wood, it's not a mimic.
Though you might be interested to hear that the ichor of the mimic, which would be a combination of its blood and the pigmentation liquid, is actually used for polymorph potions and could be worth quite a bit to...
I mean, it makes sense because it morphs into whatever it needs to look like. Makes sense that you would use it for polymorph potion.
Interested alchemists. We're also told that the internal organs for the mimic are also worth a pretty penny, as parts of it are used for perfumes in the Forgotten Realms, whereas some of its other organs...
Could someone send me lore for Forgotten Realms, like the actual stories and missions of the Forgotten Realms? Does that exist? Someone had to have made lore videos on that, because I read like 6 or 7 of the books, and they're amazing. But there's like a billion of them. So if you could get me like some sort of way to get me into the lore of the Forgotten Realms, I'd be super down.
Are considered tasty delicacies in some cultures. Now, this is the part that I think most people don't actually know. But the thing about the mimics is that they are large creatures, like very large.
Is that a table?
A standard mimic actually...
Bro, they become a table. That's a big thing. That's big.
Weighs about 2 metric tons. That is, a standard mimic weighs about 4,500 pounds.
Dude, stop. You're like, that's what I mean. Like, they're not just tricky, they're also strong as shit.
That's about the weight for a rhinoceros, or about 5 blacksmith anvils put together. Certainly enough to be over the weight limit for a standard elevator. If a mimic drops on you, I mean, you're dead. The glue that the creature produces is also supposed to be incredible, literally because of how heavy the monster is. Keep in mind that a mimic can hang from a ceiling perfectly using its adhesive, and considering the glue is supposed to hold its weight without fail, and it does, well, I mean, good luck getting unstuck from it is what I'm saying.
Oh my god. Like, you'll have like a mimic on a ceiling, you're just walking by and it just drops on you?
In the 5th edition Monster Manual, we're given a really weird stat block for the mimic, considering that all it takes is an average roll to be able to get off the glue.
Alright,
but in
good.
previous editions, we were told that only the strongest warriors would be able to have a chance at getting off the glue. I mean, you have to consider the fact that the glue can hold a
Coffin mimic. Oh my god. These are terrifying.
500-pound creature on the ceiling without falling. Well, you be the judge if your adventurer can simply pull itself out of it. Good luck. Now, actually, there is a way to get out of the glue that the Monster Manual does not tell you. Alcohol. It is very explicitly stated that alcohol counteracts the effects of the glue, which is the only way of eliminating the adhesive out of the body of a mimic without actually killing the creature. Now,
honestly,
it is kind of
makes sense. Like, you know, the best way to get like tape off if you have tape on your arm or whatever, and you don't want to rip your hair out, or is to use alcohol. Like those little alcohol pads, they basically unstick the tape. So that's pretty good.
But mimics actually like alcohol, by the way. They don't get drunk off of it or anything like that, but they do seem to enjoy.
Is this just a dwarf like hanging out with a barrel mimic, or is the barrel mimic about to eat the guy?
The flavor, and they get sustenance from it. You might not know this either, but the mimic actually uses this glue that it secretes from its skin to move. See, even though
that's a hobbit halfling. Well, look, I'm doing the lore, okay? All right, we just did copper dragons. All right, this is my second one.
The mimic looks like a slime in its original form, it doesn't really slither like one. Remember, its skin is not slimy at all. It is actually rough and harsh. It feels like stone, so slithering is difficult. Instead, what it does is it swings itself around using its glue. It'll produce an arm, fill it with glue, stick it to a surface, and then drag himself over or swing himself over. The Monster Manual also doesn't tell you that the glue it secretes is not the only secretion it has. In actuality, the mimic can also produce a liquid that smells like rotting meat, a liquid it uses to attract smaller, more common prey like rats. Now, we talked about the fact that the mimic was huge, but I want to really convey how big they're supposed to be. It is described to us that the typical mimic has a volume of 150 cubic feet.
Yikes.
That volume fills a dimension of 5 feet in length, 5 feet in width, and 6 feet in height. From my European brethren, 5 feet is about 1.5 meters.
Yeah, I know.
These guys are
That's
thick.
crazy.
And for the mimic to be able to go...
Dude, these are threatening and terrifying in their own rate, and then they turn into your toilet.
Really turn into anything, it has to use all of its mass. They can't reduce or increase their mass whenever they transform, which means that they can only really transform into big things. The only rule that I have seen,
so basically they can only transform into something that's its size. That's pretty interesting.
Is that they can't transform into anything that is longer than 10 feet. 10 feet seems to be the longest that they can go in any direction. Now, to break it down even further, we're actually literally told how big a chest would be that has been made by a mimic. That chest would be about 3 feet tall, 6 feet wide, and 8 feet long. Now, here's a rug that's 6 feet wide and 8 feet long, so just add a height of 3 feet to that, and you can envision how big that chest would be. Now, that would be a royal treasury chest if I've ever seen one. Now, the question becomes, so wait, aren't there any small mimics? Well, yeah, there actually are some, but the reason for their existence is probably not what you think. Or maybe it is exactly what you think. It would make sense, actually. A medium-sized...
Not full-grown? They're not adults?
Mimic is actually a baby, or something akin to a baby.
Wow.
See, mimics reproduce by fission. That is, when they reach their full size, then they will split themselves in half.
I love the lore so much. I love the lore so much. Oh my god, they literally have reproductive lore. There's lore how they reproduce, man.
Creating two where there was one. If you find a medium-sized mimic, then it is probably one that just came out of a separation, and it is likely that you will find another one of its size somewhere in the dungeon as well.
That's so cool, dude!
What's interesting about this is that it is not known whether or not a mimic actually ever stops growing the older it gets. Almost always, a mimic will split in half when it reaches a
ship mimic?
certain size, but there has been notable cases of mimics becoming so large that they literally become as big as houses, and when that happens, they end up pretending to be houses in order to attract prey.
Dude, this is some Lovecraft shit. I'm not even joking. Like, this is unbelievable. I love mimics. They're such a cool, like, don't trust anything, for real, for real.
This seems extremely rare though, and even though we have seen those cases, we're not sure how they came to be. Generally speaking, you will only find mimics inside, whether it is in a dungeon or inside of a house. That's because the body of a mimic is filled with optical sensors that are sensitive to heat and light, and can detect such things even in pitch black darkness. This is where the dark vision of the creature actually comes from. But what's interesting about this is that if the source of light is strong enough, the mimic can actually be blinded.
Oh.
The reason they don't live outside is because the sunlight, generally speaking, is enough to blind them. Like wearing heat-seeking goggles out in the middle of a sunny day. You just can't see a thing. Now, the other thing that you might have noticed is the protection against acid in the stat block. You were probably wondering where that comes from. See, this originally came from the fact that mimics are actually completely immune to slimes, whether it is black puddings or ochre jellies. Mimics are completely immune to their attacks. We're not sure why this is, but it is possible that when the mimics were created in the first place, that a slime was used as part of its creation process, making it somewhat part slime. We don't really know much about their creation, though we're explicitly told that they were indeed created by a powerful mage who wanted his possessions to guard themselves in a—
Bro, this one motherfucker ruined my life. This one guy, this one asshole mage decided he's gonna, you know what? He's gonna make a self-guarding shit, and then it just keeps growing and multiplying, and now there's billions of them, and they're everywhere. They're houses, bro. They're literally houses.
In case of intruders. The name of this mage has been lost to history, but it is believed
because he was probably fucking eaten by one of his mimics.
That all mimics actually come from this individual.
That's crazy, dude. That's insane.
Whoever this individual was, he created more than just one type of mimic. In reality, he created 2 different breeds. Now, the Monster Manual actually does mention this. If you pay close attention, you would remember hearing me say at the beginning of the video that very rarely you can actually find a type of mimic that's actually intelligent, that can actually speak, and that this type of mimic actually tries to bargain with adventurers.
I didn't realize that was a different species. I just thought that was just some mimics were able to get advanced like that.
What the Monster Manual does not tell you is that this type of mimic is actually the most common. In fact, so common, it is literally called the common mimic.
So the common mimic is the one that's going to talk to you?
That's its name. The mimic that you are all more used to seeing, the one that's dumb, that can't speak, that will always attack you until it dies, that's actually called the killer breed. That tends to be bigger, so instead of having a volume of 150 cubic feet, they...
So the common mimic, I guess they don't trick you as much. They're just like, your office chair is hungry, your toilet wants your ass now.
Generally have about 200 cubic feet in volume. Now, technically speaking, those mimics are more rare than their counterpart, the common mimic. The common mimic...
Bro, dude, the Godfather sitting there. Come, have a seat in my chair. Please sit down, make yourself at home. And then the chair says, yes. It's like, no way.
He's intelligent and will typically not fight you if it can instead trade with you. What's interesting is that the common mimic
the common mimic has shit inside it and wants to trade. Right? It yaps. It's not necessarily a threat, per se, because it's not going to trick you.
Has its own language, one that it uses to speak to other mimics. It is believed that this language is a bastardization of the original language of their creator, the wizard creator.
He speaks the wizard language.
Though the language has been modified so much that it is impossible to tell anymore how it originally sounded. This intelligent mimics will allow you passage or might even tell you about the dungeon, but always in exchange for food. Do be careful though, because they are intelligent and...
Dude, I feel like there's 2 types of mimics, okay? All right, there's the radical, killer, dangerous mimics, and then you get the Jew mimics. The Jew mimics are like, give me gold and I will tell you some cool shit. I will give you wizarding mysteries, all right? That's what the Jew mimics tell you.
And can communicate, but that doesn't make them good. They're considered to be neutral creatures. Even if you have struck a bargain with the mimic, if at any point in time the mimic actually sees that you're weakened and vulnerable, it might just attempt to eat you regardless. To them, the only thing that matters is food and survival. And if you need to know, a good meal to them is 1 to 2 humans worth of food. A meal that should satisfy and should sustain a mimic for a couple of weeks.
Okay, my chat's getting really anti-Semitic right now.
Before it needs to feed again.
That was a great video. That was a great video. Mimics S tier immediately. I don't know if maybe we're gonna be introducing some things that are gonna make me bump it down later, but nah, dude, mimics are S tier creatures. What a fantastic idea. Truly horrifying and terrifying. The idea that you have multiple of them, that they breed by just constantly growing endlessly. There's 2 types. You have the common mimics as well as the killer mimics. This is absolutely an S tier creature. I'm really happy we're doing lore dives on this, and very excited for future ones. So let me know in the comments future ones you want me to do. Lots of people in my chat are saying the Tarask, so we'll see what that's all about, but for now, stay weird, fam. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, fam.